2.
Hello, everyone. It is another CCO Club webinar, number 42. We've got something special for you today. Some of you may already know Bertram if you are in the same social media as myself in this arena in the medical field and medical business professionals. I first met Bertram on LinkedIn, and through Lori, our social media person through CCO. Bertram is a recruiter, and he does fabulous webinars. Well, I call them webinars. Do you call them webinars, Bertram, or do you call them something else? Little tidbit video clips?
Just video content.
Yeah, video content, expert advice, little insights that help you get jobs, maybe get a new job, maybe go to that next aspect of your career. And Bertram has his own website, Renown. Did I say that right? Renown Talent?
Yep, Renown Talent. Yes.
Okay. I was like, oh, I better have said that. That's right. Boyd and I were talking because before, that's your name. Was it Bertram or not? Because we were trying to pronounce it like 3 different ways, and I was like, oh my gosh, because we communicate online. We didn't, and even when he watches his videos and everything, went for sure. So we have some great questions that if you joined in on our social media or got our email letting you know what we were going to talk about tonight, some of the questions that he is going to cover. This is kind of a new format for us, and I wanted to let you know this is a club exclusive. So for our social media platforms outside of our club, we're kind of giving you a sneak peek at some of that exclusive content that CCO provides for their clubs. And I'm really glad, Bertram, that you're here. I know Lori talks about you all the time, and I think we've been trying for maybe a year to get this worked out, right? Pretty sure. So I'm going to go ahead and let Bertram tell us a little bit about himself and what recruiters do. And then, this is kind of casual. At the end, if you have questions, feel free. We'll stay and answer some questions for you. And you can pick the brain of a recruiter, those questions you always wanted to ask. So who is Bertram?
So I've been involved in HIM for over 8 years. I first worked for one of the larger coding vending companies, Imagine. Back then it was called K-Force Healthcare. I was there for around 3.5 years. I then moved to another organization called M-Modal, where I was the head of the recruiting department going into ICD-10. Within 8 or so months, we increased headcount over 500%, and that's not including non-billable staff, so coding managers and the other folks that support the productive coding. And it was like the best job that I ever had, but I had to work so long to get that job. And I don't know, it was interesting because I just had a calling my last year there saying, Bertram, you have to leave your job. You have to start your own agency, because if I wanted to go to the next step within corporate, it was going to be something within human resources. Nothing against that, but I love recruiting. I just love helping people get jobs. I love connecting with someone that was, sometimes you're hurt going through a job change. It's not always about, oh, I got a promotion. Sometimes it's like, I got fired. So I like to talk to that person, pick them up and say, hey, we're going to get you something better. This is actually a good opportunity for you, and then help them get something better. But through my tenure, I've always kind of done that because, like many of you, and I'm sure Alicia, this happens all the time, Alicia, I can't get a job. They're hitting those roadblocks. So ever since I started, since I kind of found, and I talked to a lot of people behind the scenes as to how we are able to get those jobs. And like a lot of you, new graduates or people who have credentials or have not gotten that job just yet, I was just like you. Believe it or not, I wanted to be a recruiter. And you're thinking, well, I want to be a medical coder, and why is it not happening? And I found out just the ways to actually get those positions. And that's why I started the Ask a Recruiter video series on, the social media platforms, because for us to have all this experience and all this information and to keep to ourselves is so selfish. But you can also do something else that's selfish by knowing that you can help others get to where they're going. So that's just the point that I'm at in my career right now. My agency, Renown Talent. We don't do a lot of corporate recruiting. And let me explain. So corporate recruiting is more of, I work for this company, you're going to work for my company. We do more external recruiting, meaning those companies partner with us because they have a hard time finding people opportunities. So I know a lot of people want to send me their resume, hey, Bertram, like, help me get a job. And I can't essentially do that because my clients keep us very busy with specific titles that they want us to find. So you can look at any of our social media platforms. We're always posting about the latest opportunities. And at that time, you can reach out to us to see if we can help you, assist you in that opportunity. But the best way that I can provide value to all of you is just by reaching out to me, asking me questions so we can, if we get enough of the same questions, we can actually have a video about it so we can answer those questions. And it's just from my perspective. And I hope by me getting out there and putting more content, that more people within HIM, other recruiters, other sales professionals will do the same. But as Alicia said, I'm really fired up. I'm really passionate about HIM. And I know that we're all kind of like hearing and seeing the same things, but all of us have so many conversations, especially when you have a lot of years of experience behind the scenes, and we want to have this platform to be able to share it with you so you're more prepared to go out there in the job market and get what you need to get.
Kind of going out with confidence. And I think a lot of it has to do with the networking. That's what recruiters have that most people don't
Absolutely.
have, is that ability, that network behind them. So that's great. So what, if someone were to ask you, what does actually a recruiter do? Why would I want to connect with a recruiter besides having, that wide network? Is there other things that you provide for them? Do they just send you a resume, or do you pre-qualify people? How does that work?
So in the corporate arena, let's say I work for a company, the only way that you would actually get hired is usually through a recruiter. I remember my last corporate position, and we're talking about people that are going to be very close to the C-suite. They still said, hey, go through Bertram, send Bertram your resume. He will send you the links that you have to apply for. We are essentially the gatekeepers of everything that's going to go into HR. Your resume essentially goes through that ATS, the application tracking system, and it gets pulled from the information, and they utilize that to start your employee profile. I hope each of you can get to the point where what I would say, you're renowned enough, like people know you, so when they hire you, they don't have to question your abilities, that they say, hey, you already got the job, let's just fill out the paperwork to kind of make it official now. But essentially, a lot of you may have to or have had to work with a recruiter because you reach out to the C-suite, you reach out to somebody in HR. What are they going to do? Well, you have to go through the recruiter because they work closely with the hiring managers. That's what a lot of we do. We work closely with the hiring managers. We hear about what they need and what they're looking for, and then we help qualify them. And the hiring manager is very busy. HR is very busy. So we keep on top of everyone. We keep on top of the hiring manager and make sure we're able to push you through the process, get you tested. Congratulations, you got the job. Make sure you're going through onboarding. And we're also, I would say your best advocates, quite honestly, because everyone at the company is usually very skeptical about anybody else that's joining. And the recruiter is the one, kind of like your lawyer in court, defending you and saying, hey, Alicia's fantastic. You better hire her. If you don't hire her, you have a problem. Why? Because we've had a chance to talk to everybody else. And if Alicia is the best and she outshines everyone, we're going to say, well, okay, yes, maybe she hasn't done this for 12 years, but she's done it for 10. You're overlooking something in a great person here. We are your advocates. And that's why I'd say that recruiters are really the best untapped resource out there in the employee market. I think a lot of us have this old notion about like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you just continue to use my name as an example. That feels nice. That's my ego. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
but
to
I think
interrupt.
a lot of folks have, no, absolutely. I think a lot of folks have a very old notion about, oh, I talked to a recruiter and they're slimy and they're grimy and they're trying to like take me away from a job that I love. Believe me.
I'm not going to get us. It's like I'm not going to go through the real estate agent because they're just going to take a percentage of my money. And if I go straight to the the seller, I can. No, it doesn't work like that, does it? You don't get your foot in the door if you don't go through the proper channels, especially with a big corporation.
Absolutely. And
that's
the
how I
thing
worked
is, like,
for Optum. It was through a recruiter that found me, and that's who I had all my contact with until even after all the training was done. I had 6 months worth of training, so
wow, that's awesome.
Strictly through the recruiter.
And that's the thing though. Like for me, if someone's like, well, Bertram, I'm not really interested in utilizing a recruiter, I'm not really looking, I'm like, okay, that's okay. I think a lot of recruiters now are so not as pushy as we have had to been, because now
Mm,
it's much easier to get access to the talent. I was talking with
yeah.
someone today, and it's like, well, if I need somebody that's part-time, benefits, no benefits, computer, nighttime, like the market and
Mhm,
social media allows us to connect with everyone. So we don't necessarily have to push
mhm,
our agenda on anyone, but we will reach out and
mhm.
make sure that people are interested. And if they're not interested, that's okay. We'll just move on to the next individual.
I just thought of something before we go on to the next slide, but and as the recruiter, you would know what your client's wanting, as both ends, the
Hmm.
company as well as the employer and the employee. So, if, for example, I were to say, I don't need insurance, that's not something that is a concern of
Correct.
mine. I can take this package deal versus this package deal because my husband has insurance, or I have this, or I have that, and
Correct.
then the recruiter could pass that on, whereas you're not going to even be able to make those comments until like the third interview. Yeah.
Exactly. And think about it this way: if you're just applying online, there's nowhere for
Mm,
you to put that information. A lot of and this
that's
is this is
right.
the gray area that I love recruiters for. We can work in the gray area by knowing your personal and connect with the manager and saying, well, this is why this and this is why this. On an ATS, it doesn't have
Hmm.
that. On an ATS, they're just assuming
Hmm.
everybody's going to take the 401k and the benefits and those types of things. So working with a recruiter gives you a more customized, personalized, and I think a better overall job experience. A lot of the folks that I work with, I say congratulations. They say, Bertram, working with you was so easy. You walked me through the
Yeah.
process. I was very knowledgeable about everything that was going on, so nothing was a surprise. If you're just applying online, and sometimes we have to do that, right? But if you're just applying
Right.
online, you have
Yeah.
no idea if you're going to have 5 interviews or 6 or take a test. A recruiter, they will usually tell you about
Hmm.
the processes and what the hiring manager has shared
Yeah.
with them.
I had to take an Excel exam for that
Wow.
Optum job too, which, and the recruiter told me, if you don't know Excel, then you need to go, that's a prerequisite. And I was thinking, oh man, it's
Yep.
been forever since I've done that. And they said, here's, 2 videos, go watch these videos. And I did, and boom, I could do it. But I wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that was required on the exam if I hadn't watched those videos. So that
There
was
you go.
really, really helpful. So let's look at the next topic. What makes a great employee or a new hire? And then, as a caveat to that, what makes a great employer? So, when you have these companies or an organization or an employer looking for an employee, what are they looking for? What makes a good candidate?
So ideally, I think when folks are looking to hire, employers looking to hire an employee, they have that particular job description because these are the things that the company is going through right now. But as we all know,
Mm.
your job description is going to change from day one. We've all had those
Yeah.
situations where we're like, I thought I was hired for this. And the thing is that employers will hire you with what they know. But what if the market
Hmm.
changes tomorrow? And by the time that, they
Hmm.
posted the job to when you actually get the job, it's going to change. So
Hmm.
ideally, it's flexibility. They're not saying that you're not
Yeah.
going to code inpatient, right? They're not saying any of those things. But what they're saying is, oh, we have a severe backlog right now on same day surgery. Inpatient is okay
Hmm.
for now. Would you mind helping us out on same day surgery for a couple of weeks? Just knock those out. And then, yeah, we're going to get you transferred over. You do
Hmm.
those little favors for your employer, it
Yeah.
actually benefits the candidate
Mhm.
more than the employer, because then you're able to add that to your resume. Hey, I am an inpatient
Mhm.
coder, but whenever they had an issue with their DNFB, I helped out on outpatient. But I think a lot of times folks are like,
Right.
oh, well, I was only hired for inpatient. You are selling yourself
Mhm.
so short, because right now, I think actually a lot of folks are locked in only doing a certain skill set rather than them
Yeah.
getting the opportunity to do other things.
Yeah. I was actually did a contract job once, and I hadn't even been working a month, and one of their coders, we were all remote, she broke her leg. you know and they were already pushed for time, and next thing I
Hmm.
know, the supervisor was getting a hold of me and was like, okay, can you code this, or have you ever done ENT, can you do
Correct.
moving people around just to cover that, because she ended up having to
Hmm.
have surgery, and so being adaptable, I think you're right, that makes a really, not being scared to try, because at the time I said, no, I've never coded
Exactly.
ENT, but how hard can it be? And actually I learned a lot, and it was fascinating. It was
There you
fun.
go.
But I had the backup from the other people were perfectly happy to say, oh yeah, that particular provider does this all the time. When you see
Hmm.
that, then these are the codes you're going to be looking at. Don't
Yeah.
have to go searching. So it was a lot of fun. So what makes a great employer?
I think someone that will definitely identify your strengths right now, but a
Mm,
place that you will be able to grow. And the reason why I say that is because whenever I worked with, the former corporations I was employed with, it was usually a 3-month assignment, a 6-month assignment. And I'd never outsold or oversold anything. I was very clear that, hey, this is a 3-month or 6-month assignment. But I always
mm,
encourage, the contractors and the people that I hire to do really good work, because the employer, the clients, the hospitals would definitely keep that person in mind, but also the salespeople that say, wow, it took me a year to get that contract and to get people in there. And Alicia did so
mhm,
well, they're going to extend that
mhm,
contract. That's where the job opportunities come. So a great employer is
mhm,
always somewhere that you're going to be able to do great things, not just for the now, but for the future. They're going to hire you with other opportunities in mind. I wouldn't push an employer
right.
about, well, where do you see me in 5 years? But more, where do you see yourself
Mm,
in 5 years? Do you see yourself having,
mm,
more work this way, or do you see yourself growing your inpatient? Because I'm looking to grow that way. And I think a lot of hiring
mm.
managers, supervisors are going to keep those things in mind, and they're going to keep you in mind because you were not just looking at the now and where you can help them, but you're looking at the future.
Yeah, that's good. I can tell you, just like with CCO, and our staff, one thing that's really nice about our owner and founder, Laureen recognizes people's talents right away.
Hmm.
And so when you have an employee that's like eager beaver, and they'd say, okay, we have this project we're working on, it's like, I want to do it, I want to do it, oh, let me do it. It's like, okay, and then another one's like, oh, let me, and it's like, you know what, you have a certain set of skills, and you're more suited for project A versus project B. I don't want you dividing your attention between A and B. And having an
Hmm.
employer that recognizes your skill set and is willing and able to say yes and also say no, but not say it like, well, I'm not letting you grow. It's just, I need you in this position because I know this fits your skill set.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for someone, and that's why I'm going outside the company, or I'm doing this or that, because I want somebody to focus on that so that we can grow. And so yeah, those are great things. Let's look at our next topic. Do credentials matter, and do extra credentials hurt or help? So if we don't just look at the coding industry, let's consider coding, billing, practice manager, compliance officers, the whole gamut of a medical professional, kind of in the arena, business professional. Do the credentials really matter?
Absolutely. I think we have gotten to a point, especially for those who have a lot of tenure. They're like, well, Bertram,
Hmm.
I'll give you a perfect example. I actually worked with an individual, and they have close to 20 years experience doing project management. Never got the
Hmm.
PMP, the project management certification, but they could write the book. Okay.
Hmm.
And then through a series of unfortunate events, now they're available. They're back out in the job market. And guess what? Everything requires the PMP. So for all of you
Mm,
out there,
yeah.
if you have the knowledge, if you have the experience, I know your job is secure, you're going to be there for the next 50 years. Great, go out and get your credential. Because if you
Mhm.
happen to find yourself being available, and I've seen it countless times, you'll be so worried about where's my resume, where the next paycheck is going to come in. You're not going to think about, oh, when can I test? Can I test in March? And
Yeah.
I have to find and get time to study. So credentials definitely matter. Extra credentials can help, but I would like to say they're going to help you in the future. I think just like myself,
Mhm.
oh, I have my business degree. Fantastic. Let's go out to the job market. Job market like
Mhm.
knocked me out like Mike Tyson. It's going to help, but it's going to take time for not just for people to recognize that you have that credential, but for you to find out how you can have that, how you can utilize that credential. So extra credentials definitely help, but I'm also not sorry, Alicia, but I'm also not one for somebody just having like 20 credentials, because
Yeah.
you also should specialize in something,
Mm.
meaning that people should know you for doing something, you
Not
know?
for
So,
having 20 credentials. I
I mean,
have to tell you though.
there's a gentleman that I know, and he has like 10 of them, and and he joked and he said, well, Bertram, I'm actually running out of letters of the alphabet. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I I know several people that have, that are multi-credentialed and dual credentialed with organizations and everything, and their particular job requires it. For example, which you
Mm,
probably know,
yeah.
Chandra, she worked with us, and her job, she was working with a lawyer that was going in and doing, specialty work for specialists,
Hmm.
and her job required it, and so it was, that's great. But I've also seen people that with talking to them a little bit, and they had all of these credentials, and like you said, it's not that it watered it down, but
Hmm.
ultimately I think they were just really good test takers. And having 5 credentials versus actually working in that field, it's 2 different
Exactly.
things. And
Exactly.
I can tell you that I've done, some, contract, I've done some side jobs and stuff where I thought, "Oh, wow, I teach this stuff. This isn't gonna be a problem at all." And it kicked me on my backside. I was blown
Yeah.
away that it wasn't as easy to be an in the trenches coding person for that specialty as I thought it would be. It was very
Correct.
humbling. And so, it's, you have to, if you have the credential, you have to be able to have the something to back it up with too. So
The
the
knowledge,
one
the
thing I would say
experience,
about,
absolutely.
yeah,
Hmm.
we do have some people that say, I can't seem to get a job as a CPCA. We'll use that as an example. Do I need to pick up another
Hmm.
credential? And I would tell you that, if there is a lull between your getting your credential and you're looking for a job, and you have the income or the ability to go ahead and pick up some more training, whether you sit for the
Hmm.
credential or not, that's, i, I think that's not a bad thing. you know um, is picking up being a CPCA and a COC or a CIC, or a CRC with that, is that going to make you more hireable? Maybe. But
Hmm.
I do think you want to always take advantage of any lulls in between jobs and stuff, if you can afford to do that, to keep increasing your knowledge base. But yeah, it's
Absolutely.
not
Absolutely.
as impressive to have that. That's like, I always think of, there was some funny clip that I had seen where the guy said, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And the guy walks up and he goes, "Yeah, I'm a doctor." And and the guy's having a heart attack, but the guy had a doctorate in philosophy, and so he was asking questions like, "Well, how do you feel about, the entire," or something? I can't remember. It was like, nah, it doesn't really apply. Um, Okay, moving along. These are really great questions, and I have to tell you, these are questions that, well, Bertram gets asked all the time. We at CCO get asked all the time, and we've touched on some of these in the past, but never had everything together like this, where you can have all your questions
Yeah.
answered at once. Most common reason why remote work doesn't work for everyone, and our employers really looking at social media profiles. So,
Yeah.
is
Yep.
Bertram, is remote work all it's cracked up to be?
Goodness. I mean, I would have given you a totally different answer 6 months ago when we only had
Yeah.
one child in the household. And now we have two, and oh my goodness, like I can't work. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it's totally different because the dynamic in my house has changed.
Mhm.
The most common reason why remote work doesn't work for everyone is because of communication. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is when you're working remotely, you're only going to have so many interactions with your manager, with your teammates. And they are essentially, and we do it too, we essentially think about our teammates as we have interactions. And if every time we have interaction, there's a crying baby in the back, or a dog barking, or it's a phone interview
Mhm.
and there's noise, there's static, there's all these other things going on. You are in a drive-through at McDonald's, true story.
Yeah.
That's how that person is going to perceive you. And what I mean by
Yeah.
about communication, even after you get the position, to actually have a clear communication with your manager about what's going on in your life. Let's say you work 9 to 5, but oh, I have jury duty, and oh, it's a serial killer case, and I'm gone for 2 months. You wouldn't believe how many folks would actually be coy about it and kind of run around and almost act like they're doing something they're not supposed to, instead of saying, hey, manager Alicia, this is what I'm going through. And from a personal standpoint, I had to actually be in Korea for my wife's health, because we were having trouble conceiving and all these things. And I spoke to my manager just very honestly, because I'm like, we're having trouble conceiving. The USF University over here, that doctor's booked up for like 4 months for a first appointment. My wife is in Korea, and the doctor said, I got to come now. You wouldn't believe it. My boss actually told me, hey, Bertram, you know what? I actually have to do the same thing for my 2 kids. So you go ahead, you go to Korea, you take your computer, we'll work with you the best that you can work. But I think some people would have actually just even said, well, they're not going to let me work out of the country, and just resign from the position. So I think having really good communication with your manager, and them understanding that if you ask something, it's only really because you need it, rather than you're always being that needy, definitely helps. And our employers looking at social media profiles, absolutely. Think about it. You find out, and we all do it, right? We find out we're going to have that next teammate, right? Bertram Lansiquot is joining the team. You're going to Google or LinkedIn or Facebook search that person. So even though we do it, we almost act like it's not done. I think it's a little bit harder for people to find your Facebook profile. But what I love about LinkedIn is that you can control the narrative, meaning you can put a really nice professional picture, a lot of your experience on there, your credentials, a good summary about yourself. Not that you necessarily are looking for opportunities, but them seeing that is going to show, well, this person actually takes their professional appearance seriously. And I'm telling you, a lot of the hiring managers, when I speak to them, they tell me, Bertram, this person checked on my social media profile, and I looked at it. Like, I'm hearing these conversations with the hiring managers. So are they checking? Absolutely. So do your best to make sure that your profile is at 100% and very professional.
There was a particular college I have. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit now, and there was a group of it was college students. I kept seeing these people pop up that were, and it stated whatever university or college that they were going to. So I kind of got the feeling that whatever course they were taking, that was part of their course, was to, create a profile and get out there. I would have made my students do that. And but most of them were all very professional that popped up if I go in and look at them. But there was a couple, there was more than one. There was like 2 or 3 that when I looked at their profile, it was one of those apps where like you turn your face into a dog or a cat. You know what I'm talking about? It was like, why would you use that as your professional? I thought, oh, okay, and and you don't, for women, you don't want to take pictures with sultry looks and stuff, and men, it's not beefcake, out there,
Correct.
and being professional is extremely important. And nowadays it's not
Absolutely.
hard to click a professional picture. I think the one that I've got on my LinkedIn right now is one that someone said they needed a profile pic, and as some of you guys know, I lost a lot of weight. My hair's a lot longer and stuff. So I just clicked one day, and I was like, hey, that looks good. And bam, that, so it's not hard to do that and keep that.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to just real quick, the remote work. And we've talked about this, and I think our CCO lives before. You can go see them on YouTube. But I really cringe, and I don't see it as much as I used to, like I said, 5 years or so ago, where people would try to get you to take a course and say, hey, become a medical coder, start out $60,000 a year and work from home, stay home with your kids. That's not, if you see that, then I would steer clear of that type of advertisement. However, this particular arena, and every year it seems like more and more positions are remote positions.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of factors that have changed that.
But I
So
will say,
I think.
But I will say, when it comes to remote work, and even for me as a recruiter, I accepted this job and working in an office and being there 4 or 5 days a week. Even though it looks as enticing, we have to also realize that not everybody started there. A lot of the like the first coders
That's right.
that I recruited, I always talk to them, and I would encourage you, if you just see or know anybody or connect with anybody that has over 12 years of experience, just ask them. And I'm telling you, they were like in the basement of the hospital, and then they kind of got
Yeah.
some money, and they got, you know, Epic, or they got a remote capable system, and then they sent them home. Even though it's remote now, it wasn't always like that, and you usually had to earn your stripes to actually get that. And I think some facilities
That's
still require
exactly
you
right.
to, like, let's say, work on site for a year before you're able to go home. So for a lot of you that are getting involved in this industry right now, remote is a capability. It is out there. It doesn't always mean you're going to start out there, but I would highly
And
encourage you, you know, like, do what you have to do to get the experience, because once you have that, then you're going to be employable by almost, you know, every employer out
yeah,
there, whether it's a health system or a coding vendor.
I like how you said you got to earn your stripes, and it's communication skills are like, there's a whole lot harder, and especially when you're new, you don't have that person that you can just tap on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons. How important is continuing education for recruiters' point of view, and does internship in the field help with initial job searches? If a person has done an internship. So the CEUs, um, uh, having somebody say that they are doing CEUs or the continuing education, that they stay in that, is that important?
I think the
And
CEUs are highly
let me say
important.
also as a caveat,
Uh-huh.
I let me say as a caveat that some employers will pay for CEUs. And
That's
do
true.
you see some employers saying that, yeah, we offer X amount in CEUs or for continuing education for our employees as a bonus for working with us and things. But
I think I think some do, but also some don't. So it's really based upon, you know, the employer. So definitely, if you're going through an application process, it's a good question to ask. It's not one, and I probably fault myself for not, like, knowing for every opportunity. I'm just looking at and thinking about the jobs that I'm working right now. But there are also some companies that they do a lot of consulting, meaning that they actually educate and they help, you know, health systems and educate them on the changes that are coming. So that's definitely something that's offered out there. But from a
mm,
recruiter's point of view, continuing education is highly important, because whenever there is a new test from either, let's say, a HEMA, or there's one from, you know, let's say you're actually going to work for a coding vendor or a health system, as they have coding tests, those coding tests are usually written on the most recent changes that have happened.
yeah.
So if you're going by 2019 guidelines and 2019 resources and walking into 2020, you're going to get beat up, and you're going to fail a lot of tests that could kill your confidence, when you know, and I know from looking at a lot of people's profiles, that they have a lot of very strong experience. So staying on top of that, of
Mm,
those credentials, is highly important. I was at the Florida AHIMA show last year, and this is Florida in Orlando, and we had visitors from Texas just coming in to get some additional CEUs. That's how important it
yeah.
is. You don't have to do that, right? They did it, and I asked, well, you know, there's a lot of web-based, right? But they did it because they can get a
Mhm,
lot in one sitting, but also it's a very good networking
right.
opportunity, you know? And
Hmm.
that leads me straight into internship. Internship is great, but I think a lot of us apply internship experience or internships the wrong way when we're getting out there. We're looking at internship as, oh, well, I have done something, and that's fantastic, but I don't know, like, a lot of companies, like, it's interesting, and there's a gentleman that I follow on LinkedIn, and he's actually done extensive research on this. You can get an internship, let's say with a bank, okay, and you actually do that internship for like 6 months to a year. But do you know, even with that same
Hmm.
internship, that you cannot get a job at that bank? You cannot say, hey, I did the internship, I completed it, I got like all 5 stars, like 10 out of 10, and they still won't hire you
Yeah.
because they're requiring experience.
Wow.
The best way I would
Mm,
recommend as a recruiter for us to utilize an internship is as a networking opportunity. And I'm sorry, but you
mhm.
have to do it on the down low. You have to do it connecting with Alicia and having her email and saying, hey, Alicia, when nobody's seeing, hey, can I just take you out to coffee? Can I just take you, to lunch? I just want to talk to you about your experience. And you, like, seriously, just being a little, like, a voice recorder, and just recording everything that they're saying and learning from them. That's what it really helped me. When I wanted to be a recruiter, I was in an office with other recruiters, and the recruiting manager that, we just got very well along, like we were just very chummy in a professional way. I found out that he worked for K-Force. So when I got a job opportunity from K-Force Healthcare, it was a no-brainer because he was able to get to where he was starting there. And that's why I said, well, that's probably where I have to start as well, because I had a conversation. I was able to understand his background more than just, hey, I have an internship or I know people. Like, just leveraging all of those things will help you. But I think a lot of folks are saying, well, I had an internship, I've done it for a year. The experience is a little bit different because, the experience is a little bit different because in an internship, if you mess up, they end your internship. Sorry.
That's great. Just as also when you're saying that, the local chapters, going to your meetings, going to the conferences and things like that, instead of thinking of your internship as, this gives me the skills to get the job, but that, no, this is going to help me meet the right people. And
absolutely.
Also,
networking.
when you were saying that, I thought, personality too. It allows you to see the different personalities that are in the field that you're working, that, this person is a Debbie Downer, but this person's always positive, or this person has a work ethic and I want to learn from that.
Correct.
So that I can use that work ethic here, or, so outside of, hey, I'm just doing this to get
absolutely.
a job at this company. But that's those are good points. Good. I like that. Let's see. Does education source matter? Is it like college? We call it brick and mortar college, having college credits, doing college online versus, in-house, or also having accreditation. Does that make a difference from a recruiter standpoint?
I think having the accredited resources definitely matters, because then you're actually getting it from the source. And when you go to, like, let's say with your CEUs, you actually know from the get-go that, it's going to be accepted by the different associations. So that's definitely helpful. But knowing, and this is what's so funny about the brick and mortar, because how many brick and mortars right now have fully online programs? They've reached out to me as well saying, hey, Bertram, do you want your MBA? You can have it from a total, online experience. But people know, you don't know that university for having a brick and mortar place. I haven't had, I can't speak for everybody, but I haven't had somebody not get a job opportunity because it was an online degree versus a brick and mortar degree. Okay, I repeat, I haven't had an experience in 8+ years, somebody not get a job due to brick and mortar versus online. Online is usually accepted just as well, because when it comes to, let's say, coding, auditing, these are things that they'll be able to see you have the experience and you're able to do it. Just because you went to a brick and mortar doesn't mean you are the perfect professional. You can still make mistakes, or you may not necessarily be good in that job. So it definitely does not matter, I'll say, at this point, especially with an HIM.
Yeah, and with a HIM background and stuff, if you don't have to be have a degree to do coding and billing and compliance and stuff like that necessarily. However, if you want to get into management and maybe not even supervisor, but management, and you want to pursue some higher levels where it's more the business aspect of medicine and things, then they will look at a degree is going to weigh on that. However, we were just having a conversation on LinkedIn, I think it was yesterday, where someone said, they were an RHIT, and they said, I can't get a job in the coding industry because I have I can't do it. And so they were going to go ahead and get either, the CCS or even the CPC, because that's what the employer wanted. And so the discussion was, you're right, because an RHIA, even though you're introduced to coding and you experience, you're not really taught to code, as if you have that certification under your belt. Now, some of you may not know, if you're an RHIA, that's a 4-year degree. And if you're an RHIT, that's an associate's degree. So again, it's an HIM degree. And those are the people that learn about the dynamics of working in the office, the HR stuff, the OSHA stuff, as well as compliance and writing
That's right.
contracts for providers, and much bigger than. Whereas if you are certified in coding, billing, compliance, auditing, all that kind of thing, that's what you're proven to be able to
Absolutely.
your skill set.
And my advice to anyone is, if you think about your career 10 years from now and you say, well, if things change, there may be a chance I would like to get involved in management. I would like to do something more than just coding. And this goes right into the next question. Right now is the perfect time for you to get those additional credentials, start your schooling and get there, because coding is changing faster than we know it. I'm not going to go into all of the details, because one of the questions coming up we're going to be able to dive into that. But a lot of trends within medical coding, before it was more of, if you had the experience and a credential, you could get a manager position. Definitely right now, I'll tell everybody, it's becoming a requirement. Minimal RHIT, a lot of employers are looking for the RHIA. And I'm talking about, I would identify these people and they have tons of experience, but they said, Bertram, every single one of our managers has one of those. And I love them, but I cannot hire them. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to go out there and get that and get that job. But just like I said earlier, what if that job doesn't work out? And then again, you're on the market and everybody else has it, but you don't have it. A lot of times for the application process, what the employers are looking at is, if everybody has it, why doesn't this person have it? If Bertram is so great, why doesn't Bertram have it? So I just want each of you to be educated and know that now is the best time for you to go ahead and do that. And if you're saying, well, for now, it's perfectly fine. I don't see myself being in management, going into risk, going into compliance. I'm perfectly fine where I'm at. Then it's probably okay. But if you have the time, if you have the money, if you have the resources, like Alicia and her team, maybe something for you to consider.
Another thing that I would mention too, I experienced this, that when I went from one university to another university and I was transferring credits and so on and so forth, and I had said, oh, by the way, I carry these medical certifications, and I showed them to them, and they said, yeah, we transfer that. And I said, well, they're not accredited, they don't. And they were going to give me, I think, 9 credit hours for my 3 credentials. And come to find out, I didn't need them. But that a lot of online, especially in online colleges, this is a trend that started, about 6 years ago, I noticed. So any education that you get where it is, you're going to get a certificate saying that you completed this, like our PBC course is an 80-hour equivalent course. Well, when you get a letter from CCO saying that you completed this and everything, that you can go in and take that to your college, university, and say, is this transferable as for electives or life training or et cetera? And even if you just get 3 credits, hey, that's 3 credits and like 9, possibly $1,000 that you don't have to pay for. So, any and all education that you get is positive. But if you're going to go into management, if that's your career goal, then sometimes we've even told people, get your certification, get in the workforce, and then start taking your online classes at Phoenix or Ashford or some of those other there's online colleges all over the place that will do that for you. So think about that. Is outsourcing to other countries a real fear in medical coding? And then we hear this constantly. Are we going to lose our jobs to computers? Well, AI, there was just a thing about AI on LinkedIn the other day. And then also I hear people say, well, transcriptionists used to have really great jobs and now they don't. And it's like, well, yeah, you become coders, you adapt. So is outsourcing, is that something that, is everybody going to go overseas and we're going to lose our jobs, Bertram?
I think there's absolutely, and forgive me because I know, it may be emotional for some, but I would not say that outsourcing to other countries is a real fear in medical coding. The second part, and I mean, we can talk about this for an hour, and I have a firm stop in 15 minutes. I'm so sorry, everybody. But the real threat is actually technology. And Alicia, I mean, preaching to the choir, because I'm sure a lot of folks that reach out to you were in transcription, and the same thing is happening in coding right now. Okay, so right now, there are companies that are advertising and they're reaching out, and they have some very skilled salespeople. These are the people that I worked with, and they won the performance trip to go to Costa Rica and these other very exotic places because they sold very well. They've hired these individuals to be, sorry.
It's real world. Do you need a break?
No, I'm good. And the thing is that they're able to not only code within certain specialties, it's very limited right now, like ED and such, but they're also able to show the audit trail as to how they came up with those codes. And that also allows them, if somebody goes back and audits it and says, well, the computer made a mistake doing this, they can fix it so it doesn't make that mistake. And the biggest threat about technology is that it doesn't sleep. It can work 24/7. It doesn't need credentials. It doesn't need certifications.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that everybody's going to lose their jobs. I think that this is definitely something to think about 5 to 10 years from now. And that's why I said earlier, for any of you that are thinking about getting additional credentials, for any of you that are thinking, well, coding is great, but I'm looking to do something else, whether it's CDI, I want to be an analyst, something like that. Now is the best time for us to actually start making those moves, because what happened, and, you know, I feel okay to talk about this right now. MO that I most recently worked for, they were in transcription for 40 years. And what happened was not them sending work to overseas. They still actually employ thousands of people to do transcription in the US and thousands to do it in India. But it wasn't the people in India working that was actually the biggest threat to them. It was actually the technology doing the dictation and them having to go back and do those corrections, and they call it edits. Nothing against that organization, amazing organization, but everybody else is doing it too. So the biggest threat, I think, for all of the jobs, especially within HIM, is actually AI and the technology on that point. 3M, you know, a year or so ago, paid $1 million for a company that was working on a CAC product. If many of y'all know, and I don't know anybody that works for 3M that close, but from what I know, and from what I heard from coders like you, a lot of people say, well, Bertram, the 3M CAC and 3M 360, it works, but it doesn't work the way that we all think it was going to work. They've invested $1 billion in a company that has been working on it for a very long time. It's like, it's coming, everyone, and we all know it, but I don't want you to just stay by the sidelines and to see like, oh, I'm just a bystander. And I'm not saying that it's not a good career choice, because I'll be very honest with you, Alicia, coding and just any other, like, recruiting is just that first step. You know, if somebody decides to stay there and they love it, that's fantastic. But when it changes, you have to also realize that you had an opportunity to change with it as well. You know, and I've known folks that just start out as coders, be HM directors. Now they work in risk and they get paid more money and they have no employees and they only talk to lawyers all day. Like, but that wouldn't have happened, or that wouldn't have even started if they did not start coding.
Definitely adapting. Coders are very adaptable because everything changes every year, you know, for the code sets. But one thing that I learned here not too long ago is when I was talking about a job, and I said, oh, by the way, you know, how many encounters do you code, you know, an hour? How many is expected? And they said something like 30, and I'm thinking, 30, really? And then when I got in there and was looking at what they were doing, the reason that it's not like 10 anymore, back in the day when I was doing it, is because of the EMRs. Not only do you not have to read handwritten notes anymore, but the providers are already coding for the EMR. You're just going in and auditing and making sure that everything's correct. They've put the data entry in, but it's not always the highest specificity. They don't necessarily put the modifiers in. They put in codes that aren't the correct code and everything. So yeah, it's easy to do 30 in an hour when before 10, because you were coding from scratch, you know. And so again, you just adapt and change. And so yeah, you're not going to lose your job to computers. However, your job description will definitely change. And if you're adaptable, then it's not a big deal. Okay, so a career advancing growth hack. I think you got something good for us, and just some last advice for the new grads. What would you have to tell everybody? And then we'll have some
So
questions before we let
that's
you
great.
go.
Thank you so much. It was interesting because I remember when I was first started in corporate, it did not work out well for me. Within a year, I was on the job market again, and I was like, well, what happened? And what I realized was I had to change opportunities. And this is perfect for the professionals that are either freaking out or worried about technology taking your jobs. This is what I would advise you to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the career advancing growth hack, okay? What you should do, everybody that you interact with within your office, anybody that you interact with via email, you should try your best to have a conversation or at least understand their job in full detail. Hey, what do you do? How do you do it? And how do I do it just like you? Or even better, because I'm that type of person. You will realize how many opportunities you have out there, and you'll realize that, hey, this person is just like me. And utilizing places like LinkedIn, you can look at their career path and say, oh, they went from coding to auditing to management. Hey, I can do that too. And you'll realize just how easy, like the career map is there for you. The opportunities are there for you. The people that you're likely working with are probably very similar backgrounds to yourself. They may just only be 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you. So for us that are looking at it and it's like, well, I'm only doing this and I don't know what else I can do, speak to people, realize that all the opportunities are there, learn from them. And it's so interesting because, for example, the office that I worked in, they had recruiters, but they also had people that did credentialing. They also had people that did many other things. And they're also connected with people doing that exact same thing in other companies. So we can go back and we can say, oh, well, I'm looking to do credentialing. Could you help me get a job or connect with somebody at that company? And they can help you do that. So a lot of folks are so like, yeah, I'm just going to do coding and I just do it for 40 hours. You know what? Spend like an extra hour after you finish working, just kind of understanding what people are doing. So if you're looking for a career change, you can know what it's going to take and the other opportunities that are out there. And the last advice for new grads, you know, if my daughter was to get involved in coding or any industry, recruiting, anything, I would definitely encourage them to see it through, because you've made this decision for a reason, but you have to get the end result that you're seeking. And what I mean by that is, I got a 4-year degree in 4.5 years. It took me around 4.5 years to find my true calling. You know, I was so ready once I had my degree, like, yes, I got it, like, let's go. And I got knocked out, fired from my first job, fired from the second job. But then you realize that it's not you. You just need to find the right great employer. You just need to find the right team. You need to just have the right ecosystem to help you grow. And then you're like, wow, I've made it. But I think a lot of folks get discouraged because they're applying online. They never went to a conference. They never networked in person. And they said, I'm going to drop out of coding. Or, well, Bertram, I can't do that because of this. I can't do that because of this. Tell me every reason why you shouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can all do so many things. And so many people that I've worked with, they've shared with me, well, Bertram, I have this disability and I have this situation, but they're still doing fantastic. I would have never known if they did not actually want to share. But what I've also realized, and once you talk to people that have the 12 and 15 years experience, you'll realize that it's almost like a marriage. You know that it wasn't all, you know, opening doors and cookies and Valentine's Day every day. You have some hard times. You have some things to talk about. But that's when you're able to learn, hey, I can do it too. I can have my own company. I can be a recruiter. I can do all those things. It's just going to take a little work. It may take a little bit longer than I was thinking. But it's so funny because I kind of had those ups and downs in my career. My first year as a recruiter, I made more money that year than I made the 3 years prior. So the way that I look at it, I almost got like a payback for all the stuff that I had to go through and the hardship that I had to go through. So the reward is there. We can all do it, but I see so many grads just getting discouraged and they're like, well, this and this. And this is the thing. This is something that I have exclusive for your members and people that are watching right now, okay? So the first 20 people, 20 people that send me a message on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me as well, that send me a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, Bertram, I saw the webinar. I need help with my resume. I've applied to jobs. I'm having a hard time. I'm looking to change careers. The first 20 people, you send me a message with your resume or request my email. It's actually at the end of this. I will do a professional resume critique. I won't write your resume for you because I can write it and you can never use it, but I'll do a critique. I'll provide you some feedback. I may do some editing to kind of help you. So the first 20 people, and the way that you can get that, essentially the free coupon code is #BeRenown. Okay. Say, Bertram, I saw you on the webinar with Alicia and the team. #BeRenown. Help me with my resume. I'm having these issues. We'll do some back and forth. I will do some edits, and I want to help you get your career. So whether you're a new grad looking to change careers, the first 20 people, #BeRenown, reach out to Bertram on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. I want to help you guys get those positions.
That's the first step in learning to network, because Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, really great places to start that networking process. Just real quick, we had some questions come through. Hey, what are the most sought out credentials for in the are you noticing, let's say in the coding industry? Is there are they saying, it used to be the CCS all the time, but CPC, is there one that's more than the other, or are they about the same? What would you say?
Right now, for a lot of coding positions that I'm running into, it's a CCS. Some of the employers are being flexible with other AHIMA credentials, but I'm having a very strong demand right now for the CCS. It's not me, okay? I'm not the bad guy. I want to give everybody opportunities, but something about the way that it's written with coding, certified specialist kind of thing, it just reads to people, and they resonate with that. A lot of these hiring managers also have these credentials too, and that's why I think they also give applicants, recruiters, hiring managers a hard time requiring that credential as well.
Darman, they said only on LinkedIn. Just go in and open up a LinkedIn account. It's so easy. It's free. Don't spend any money. Let's see.
Exactly.
Is there, as a CPCA, they want to know, is there any other job postings they should consider looking at? Like we would have called it entry level. Is there other positions they should consider?
Within coding, I would say either coder level 1, HCC, just anything to get your foot in the door with an organization so you can start working. That's the thing. Like, I love credentials. I think they're fantastic, but I also think experience is golden. Once you have the experience, then you can say, I have the experience, I've done this, and then you can find the right opportunity to pivot. So whether you have a CCA, a CPCA, if you're looking within medical coding, search for coder level 1 opportunities, search for entry level opportunities, look for HCC opportunities, look for just a position that you can actually start utilizing your credential and gaining that experience.
We have a Rona, who's one of our CCO club members. She says, I have a master's degree and just passed my CPC. Do I go to a recruiter? I don't have any contacts in the field. What's next? What do I need to do? And I take advantage of what he's offering, and that you do need a recruiter. I can answer that for you, but he's going to tell you that.
You do need a recruiter, but you also need to do a lot of the groundwork yourself. One of the key hacks for us actually getting a lot of opportunities is us connecting with a lot of people. And that's why right now, Alicia, we need to do like a whole LinkedIn special, because right now you can get online, you can connect with all these recruiters working for these different companies, connect with all the hiring managers, all of the directors. And when they post jobs, you will know, hey, they posted a job, and you can reach out to them. You're the hiring manager. Maybe you can help me get through the ATS because they're going to kick me out because I don't have this. And you can actually get that job. So I think for anybody that's doing any pivoting, you need to do almost like a daily LinkedIn crunch, connect with 5 or so people a day, and then just build your network, and you will see that's going to lead you to having additional opportunities.
Actually, that's what I started doing. I've been, I think I've been on LinkedIn since 2012. And, but I have only really been paying attention to it for the last year. And I'm, over 20,000 contacts. And I was telling Bertram, a lot of those were recruiters in the beginning, but they're like 95, 98% medical professionals, and it's just spending a little time every day, connecting with people. And LinkedIn makes it pretty easy. And like I said, you don't need to spend any money. They keep trying to recruit you to spend money. But these are the people that are my peers and experts. And now I get messages, can you help me with this? Can you, I have a question. And then I can connect people in those expertise. Let's see. cybersecurity for HIM, is that something that honestly, that is kind of big. I've heard some great things about that. Bertram, what do you think about that? Cybersecurity for HIM.
I think
Are
it's
you hearing
emerging.
jobs for
I
that?
think I think it's emerging. I think also with analytics, it's coming, but it's something that I think will be bigger probably in the near future. But
Okay.
it's interesting. I had a compliance role, and I had a lot of these cybersecurity people applying to it because they had similar roles at banks, and so that's coming in the future. You know, Alicia, I mean, I'll love to continue, but I have a firm stop.
Yep.
I'm in
You
a
go ahead
different
and
location today because the house is
yep.
like a wreck, and
You go
the
ahead.
animals are
We'll
running
let you
around right
go,
now. We
and
may
I'll
have to
wrap
save
up.
some of these
I'll wrap
questions
up.
though for the second or the next time that we're going to have this. It was a real pleasure
Yeah.
talking with everybody. Remember, hashtag Be Renowned. Reach out to me for the first 20 people on LinkedIn. And Alicia, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great. And Boyd, thank you so much for helping me get connected.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, Bertrand. So everyone, I see lots of other questions that have come through. We're going to save some of those, and feel free after this closes down, if you want to continue, put in LinkedIn your questions. You can put your questions in also on the YouTube and Facebook. We'll double check those, but again, LinkedIn's really easy to connect with. By all means, check out the CCO Club. As I mentioned before, this is a CCO Club exclusive content, but we wanted to kind of give you guys a taste of what our club entails, and by kind of giving you a look into the social media avenues that we have to be able to do that. So check us out, cco.us/club. If you're new and you're just joining us for the first time, go to cco.us for any other tips and questions that you might have. Go to our YouTube channel, and Boyd has been wonderful to divide up shorter segments of other things that are, snippets of exclusive content, as well as some exposure to larger content. Get a feel for our teaching style, and let us know. Send in topic requests. How can we help you and to broaden your horizons in your career path? It was a lot of fun doing this. I really appreciate Bertram taking time to be with us. If you like this type of interview format, we've got some more coming up in the future that business professionals in the medical field that I think that you'll enjoy. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, happy learning, guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.